Hey, aloha, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on the COVID care conversation on the Facebook page of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. We've got a great show for you today. Department of Labor and Industrial Relations Director Scott Murakami is joining us, so please put your questions for him in the comments. Good morning. I'm Yanji Denise.
And I'm Ryan Kalei Suji. That's why we had such a fantastic response when we had Director Murakami on last week that we decided to bring him back. And so he will be available to answer those questions. Again, we want to encourage all of you watching right now to please enter in your comments, your questions, share this post as well as like it so that we can reach a wide audience as we continue to try to begin to bring this community together through this show and have this conversation specifically directed to all the things that are happening around this COVID-19 pandemic that we find ourselves in. We want to thank our partners for sponsoring this, the Hawaii Executive Collaborative, who are helping to bring this conversation. And it is a collection and a collaborative of business and civic leaders who are helping us to engage you, the community, in this conversation.
Yeah, we know tens of thousands of people in Hawaii have lost their jobs. There are projections that we could see unemployment as high as 25%. So a lot of folks will be filing for unemployment benefits for the first time. If you are facing some challenges and you want to ask your question directly to the director, this is a rare opportunity to engage one-on-one. So type in your questions, let us know what you'd like him to tell us about today. As we always do, we begin with the latest headlines. And Ryan, of course, that brings us to the count.
Yeah, the count also included another death, the first actually in the island of Molokai. So the overall case, 16 new confirmed cases here in the state of Hawaii, bringing the total to 387. And as I mentioned, the first case on Maui, bringing the death toll to 5 total deaths related to COVID-19 here in the state of Hawaii. Hawaii actually saw the lowest total of new coronavirus cases in 10 days. But state officials are urging residents to continue to not let their guard down, to continue to stay home, practicing those social distancing measures. They say it's too early to read into any sort of statistics in terms of volume and test results, because a lot of these results are actually taken from a week prior. So the results are slowly to come in. And so it's encouraging news, no doubt, but they're continuing people to keep their guard up.
Yeah, and on that note, Mayor Caldwell really trying to enforce and emphasize the need to stay home. Honolulu police have issued 353 citations for stay-at-home violations. Remember that those violations, those tickets are very expensive, $5,000 and up to a year in jail. So it's not something you want to risk. It's essential business only. Don't violate those orders because they are issuing, they've issued over 4,000 warnings so far and 353 citations for those emergency law violations. Remember, it is that misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in jail and $5,000 fine.
Yeah, so we're expected to see more enforcement on the streets as HPD sort of tries to regulate that. Other things in the news this yesterday was reported was that $250,000 worth of personal protective equipment was stolen from an Oahu healthcare company, Wilson's Care Group. They're actually located in Kaka'ako, and $250,000 worth of N95 masks as well as surgical gloves were taken. The company was actually planning to help distribute that to healthcare workers and to some of the first responders on the front lines. So some sad news. They are encouraging anyone with information to definitely call police. And if you know that anyone is selling some of these N95 masks, to also get involved and report whoever's selling that. That may actually link back to what has happened here over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they were saying that this is not your sort of run-of-the-mill theft. Someone needed big trucks. This is $250,000 worth of PPE. This is the stuff that our frontline healthcare workers need now more than ever. So if you know anything, please do call police. They want to get these materials where they belong and not in the hands of these thieves. I see a lot of questions coming in. So let's get right to our guest this morning. Department of Labor and Industrial Relations Director Scott Murakami, thank you so much for being on hand with us today. We know that you are so busy. We want to get straight to the questions. But before we do that, let us know a little bit about the kind of volume that you're experiencing. How many claims have you gotten and what are you anticipating in the days ahead?
Sure. So at this point, as of, let's see, my latest, we've received 206,126 new filings Of those, 18,665 were replicated counts. So that takes us to 187,461 initial filings. So that's pretty much where we stand now.
And in a typical time, a year ago, let's say, what's the difference in that volume?
I guess the best way to look at it is by week, so or maybe by day. So right now it seems like things have started to slow down a bit. So for the last 3 days, we received about anywhere from 7 to 8,000 claims per day. In the past, what we were receiving on a high day was about 200 claims. So it's still significant. But compared to the prior 2 weeks when we were seeing about 10,000 levels, and then prior to that, about 15, 16,000 claims per day, filings, per day, numbers have pretty much, at least they're looking like they're heading in the right direction.
It's been a week since we last talked to you, although it feels like a month at times because so much has happened within that week. You folks have had to adjust to meet the volume by opening up call centers, by bringing people back. What sort of things have happened in this past week that the department has had to adapt to during that time?
So on Monday morning, we opened up a new call center, and the call center is located in Kakako in the Entrepreneur Sandbox. So we were very fortunate to have support from HTDC, the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, as well as with support from the Hawaii Community Foundation, who provided us with the Chromebooks we needed to man the station. So that became operational. We are doing both. We're receiving calls as well as placing calls back to claimants who have left messages for us there. That allowed us the other thing we did was we created a technical support center or password reset center within our own facility. And all those two functions were in one room before. And so we've broken those out. What used to be our call center that we set up, I think about 2 weeks ago, is now our claims management center. So we're using that location to help us process claims for individuals. To staff all of this, we brought in an additional 38 people from within our department. So we started off with 7 staff in claims. We're up to an additional 76 staff. So that takes it to 84 staff now processing claims and processing filings.
Once a person files, or if they filed for the first time, what is the lag time between when they've actually filed and when they actually get money in the bank?
So our designated period normally under normal circumstances is 21 days before they actually get paid. So what I'm anticipating now is that might still be a little longer, but we're doing everything we can to reduce that period. There are certain checks and balances that the system has to make. So for example, one of those things was whenever you file a claim, we actually go out and verify with the employer that this person did file a claim, and the employer has 5 days to respond to us. If they don't respond to us within that 5-day window, we then process the claim based off of what the claimant had filed to us. So last night we removed that process so that the wait period is down to 0, because it doesn't make sense, right? The logic doesn't follow that we know the person was laid off. The employer may no longer even be in business. So why would we wait that 5-day period? But those are little idiosyncrasies that we didn't realize were embedded within the system. And, because we're used to using the system on a daily basis. But then when we take a step back and we really get granular with it and we look into the specific of what the system's doing, we realize there's these little pockets of things that don't create any kind of problem for the checks and balances we have. They don't reduce the level of fraud detection that we have, but it allows us to then better process a claim in a more timely manner to get to that point when an individual gets their pay.
One of the things that people also have applied for, of course, is or sort of could see is the stimulus package and that additional funding that is coming from the federal government for those individuals as part of that federal stimulus package. We have a question from Carlos saying, when can maybe they expect to see those stimulus benefits? Because those benefits are in addition to what the state is providing. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Carlos. And the reality of it is that we haven't received any real directive yet from the U.S. Department of Labor. We're anticipating getting that shortly. we're hoping to get it actually late last week, but it looks like it should be coming out shortly. As long as it'll go back retroactive for the period of July 1st, July 31st, and extend to the period of January 31st, and extend to the period of July 31st. That's when the $600 period will apply for. And once we get clearer direction, we'll be able to go and process those claims retroactively for all of the people who have been affected by COVID-19.
Sherry's got a question here, which I think a lot of people have been interested in. It was on the COCUA line too, which is how do self-employed folks who do independent contract work file?
So, Sherry, we need to make some changes to our system to accommodate for that. And that too, we're still waiting for guidance on the U.S. Department of Labor from, because under the CARES Act, they did broaden the populations of individuals who will qualify for unemployment insurance. Past, it didn't cover gig work or 1099 workers. So we are now the CARES Act broadened that out. The problem is that none of the systems, each state has its own system. It's not a unified federal system. None of the states have the ability to broaden that base out yet. So we are waiting for clear direction from the Department of Labor on how we'll actually do that, because there are income verifications that we would have to do to make sure that we can determine the accurate amount of pay that a claimant who receives 1099s will be entitled to.
So if you are someone like Sherry and you are filing a 1099, should you file anyway or should you wait?
That's kind of a tough one, because you could file, but there are certain population checks, from what I understand, that are not in our form yet. And that's what we're actually waiting for to get clarification on from the U.S. Department of Labor, because when that filing comes in, we can have it, but we can't do a whole lot with it, right? Because we don't have the ability. This is the example of guidance that I'm talking about. Like, that 1099 is the verification check against a tax system that we may not have access to at this point. So I think that's what the U.S. Department of Labor is working on, to ensure that we can then verify that, yes, this claimant did earn this amount during a particular period and therefore is entitled to a benefit of X amount.
So if you're someone, Dave Jimmy here, saying, how do Uber drivers go through that process? That's an exact kind of person that's in this circumstance. Right. What do you advise someone like Dave? Does he just wait, or does he I mean, I don't necessarily want to create more paperwork for you guys, but then someone like him and others probably want to be on record to say, like, yes, I'm affected, I need money. Right.
What I would suggest is just, I think some people have been notified by the businesses that they were subcontractors for, that their contract would lapse. I can assure you from that point forward, we will pay you, because we do have the capability to backdate the payment to that period. But it's difficult at this time because we haven't gotten the proper clearance. So I wouldn't be able to advise him correctly as to what to do. I would tell him that just to be prepared to file. And the reason for that is, again, we need to get the clarification on how and the explanation from U.S. Department of Labor on how we're going to actually do that.
It seems to be the case with not only you folks, but also with what's happening with the SBA and those loans as well. But that also can directly tie into some of the things that you guys are providing at the Department of Labor. So let's say there is a business that qualifies for that PPP that mandates them to sort of bring their employees back full time, to pay them what they're paying. Now, if those employees were on unemployment, they then are no longer, I'm assuming no longer are able to claim unemployment, because they're going to be brought back on through that CARES Act.
Yeah, so my understanding of the way it would work is that for the duration of time that they were not compensated because their pay was cut, we would compensate them for that time, or they would be entitled to a claim for that period. I'm not sure how the CARES Act reads for that, the Small Business Administration loans, because if they're allowed to take a reduced amount of time, then the claimant could possibly be entitled to an additional benefit. So I don't want to speak too much about the SBA because I don't know much about it, but just know if you're hired back, the period in which that you were not attached, or the period in which you were unemployed, we will file you would be entitled to at least filing a claim at that period. And then if your hours were reduced and your pay gets reduced, then yes, the individual would in all probability be entitled to a partial benefit claim.
I know I saw some questions earlier that some people had written, not specific in this feed, and we're going to get to more of yours, but I wanted to ask about furloughed workers, because a lot of folks, in order to keep healthcare and other benefits, have been furloughed as opposed to fully laid off. What is their status when it comes to unemployment benefits?
That's we have received that question quite a bit as well, and it gets a little tricky because the definition of furlough is used in different ways. But as long as you're paid, the best way to look at it is you can still be receiving benefits from your employer, meaning you're still attached to that employer. But if your pay was cut, that's what the unemployment insurance benefit will cover. So even though you're still attached and even you're still getting benefits, right, the healthcare benefit, you should still file because that does not get taken into into consideration and calculation for benefits for our claimants.
Okay. Dallas Carter has a question for Uber and other folks. If once you've filed, these comments are coming in so fast. So it's Dallas Carter here for Uber or someone in a 1099 situation. If someone's already filed, will they be okay? Will they be notified to file again? Once you, and maybe take it beyond Dallas to sort of all the claimants, once you file, do you just sort of sit and wait? Should you call to verify? What should you do after you file that initial claim? Because I think a lot of people are anxious. They need to buy groceries, pay rent. And so they want to have some kind of communication with you folks, but you're getting so many claims.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to try to apply it to a bigger population first, to everybody in common, because there are two ways in which you can file online. You can file using the normal online portal that we have, or you can file using the web form. So what happens, the only difference between the two is that the web form, it gets ingested or uploaded into our mainframe computer, and that's happening every day now. So we do it daily. We did have an initial backlog of that, but we have cleared through all of those applications, and they have been uploaded into our computer, into our mainframe system. The difference between the two is the web form allows you to file 24 hours a day. So when you go onto our site, there's a big green box on the bottom that says first time filers, click here. If you click that, you're actually filling out the form. If they're actually going through our web portal, the web portal had to be throttled back so that we could manage the amount of traffic that comes through. And I believe those are the people who are experiencing some time when they may not, able to log on. So for the individuals, if you're having a difficult time, please fill out the web form. Now, when you fill out that, click on the green box and you fill out the web form, what will happen is you'll get a message that says, congratulations, you've successfully completed your unemployment insurance claim. What will happen is that form, once it gets uploaded, it uploads the individual's email. And at that point, they'll receive the confirmation email saying, this is your claims number and whatnot. So it would take about, I would say about 24 hours to be sure that you get that claim, that email number. So if you have filed through the form, have not received the claims number, and it's been over a day or two, then I think you should call us and inquire about it. But if you have received that confirmation email, with the claims number, then you're good to go.
Great. We have a question here from Ed, and we know that we talked about this last week, that I heard that we don't need to look for work, yet we still need to answer the question. When I put no, it says I still need to look for 3 jobs a week. So if we can clarify that, we know that that has sort of been waived, that we no longer have to find those 3 jobs a week. What does that process look like?
Well, thanks, Ed, for the question. And I apologize if it was a little confusing, but what the question is actually asking you, are you able and available for work? So please respond yes. And if you respond no, I would suggest changing it. And here's the reason why. We did waive the 3 job search, so you do not need to look for jobs. So please don't go out, feel obligated to look. You don't have to do that. But we need you to check yes on it. Otherwise, it'll generate this message that says you need to pursue the 3 jobs. It was one of those things where we had limited resources and limited time to really address the solutions and work on the solution to make sure that we could get the filings processed and whatnot. So I didn't have people go in and change those messages. What's important for everybody to understand is the question really is asking you, are you able and available for work? Just check yes, and it'll process out without creating that error message, and you'll be fine.
Okay, there's a question here, and we had addressed this before, but we know that some people are tuning in for the first time. They didn't watch last week. Holden Awong asks, if someone is still working their full-time job but lost a part-time job, can they still apply? We know that so many people in Hawaii work multiple jobs. If you have one job but lost another, can you still apply for benefits?
Yes, Holden, you can apply for benefits, and I can't speak to all of it because I'm not sure each individual case is evaluated. But Holden, you should absolutely apply, and we'll do the necessary due diligence to do the review. And if you qualify for benefits, we'll certainly pay that out.
Okay, there's a lot of questions, I think, overall, people who are saying they've been trying, they're trying to get a hold of someone, they're getting busy calls. We know of the large volume that you folks are receiving. What should people do, or is there a number, or is there a way that they can maybe sort of find a way to talk to someone or get some guidance?
So I think, first off, make sure you're calling the right numbers, because I do know that we've individualized we've broken out the numbers so that you can call the right location and get routed to the right person. I will tell you this, that we have experienced just overall degradation in phone calls, and I hate to put it that way, but even for our office, there are so many calls coming in that it's not just us, our department. From what I'm understanding, just overall, people are having trouble with phone calls and drop calls. I don't think that's related just to us, though. My understanding was that was happening pretty much at other state locations as well. So I don't know to what degree it's actually because of our system or the load that we're having, but I do know that that's one of the challenges that people have faced. I will have to apologize because earlier, I think it was last week, I think it was last week, we did publish a number incorrectly. What had happened was we did not have a toll-free number when we first started up the call center. So I asked that we publish a toll-free number so that neighbor island residents could call in, could centralize some of the processing, utilize the manpower that we had on Oahu. That number was published incorrect. It was brought to my attention in the Senate hearing by one of the senators who had mentioned that they were having, people were calling in, and the line was just not, no one's available on that line. So when we checked it, there was an error in what we had posted. So I apologize for that. What I understand is the current issue is that there's just such a huge volume of calls that they're having problems, not just with us, but just all throughout a variety of locations throughout the state.
Okay, Emily Pasqua Boutin says she was finally able to create an account after attempting numerous times. However, because she couldn't create an account on the day she got laid off, and these comments, there's so many. I was not able to collect from the day I lost my job. So there is concern. Someone, maybe they lost their job 3 weeks ago, but they're just going to file today. Is this retroactive from the time you lose your job to the time you file? I mean, how much time do you essentially have? How big is that window?
So I wouldn't say there's a window. We will pay back to the date that the individual lost their job. So that date's important. You have to be sure that that date is accurate on the day you lost your job, because even though the claims are, it's taking us longer time to get through this huge number of claims, we will pay back from the date they lost their job. So Emily, although you had to file a claim after, and it took you a while, I apologize for the time that it took you to get through the system. I appreciate your persistence. Because you did that and were able to get through, I can assure you your claim will be paid retroactively the date you lost your job.
Okay. Ryan, why don't we ask Tessie Fernandez's question right there about the extension? I think.
Yeah, so this one that just came in, when does the 13-week extension kick in? I already exhausted my unemployment benefits from jobs lost last year and just got laid off from my new job last month.
Okay. Tessie, I think the three things that the CARES Act did was we provided this 13-week extension, which you're asking about. It provided the $600 plus up that was asked earlier, and then the broadening of the base to independent contractors. All three of those things we are still waiting to get guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor, and until they help us with how we're going to actually implement that, we're still at their we're still waiting to determine how we would actually implement it in compliance with what the federal government's requirements are. So until we hear from that, which we thought was going to be last Friday, we still haven't heard yet. Until we hear from them, it's really difficult to advise you, except to say that we will honor it. It's just we have to do it in compliance with the federal government because the unemployment insurance program is a completely federally funded program.
We want to throw up that number on screen. A lot of folks are asking what the right number is to call. So that's the phone appointment number. Make sure that we'll put it in the show notes afterwards there, but we just want to make sure that you have that number. There's a separate number if you need to do a password reset, and you can find that on the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations website. So we just want to make sure that you guys do have the correct number there.
Yeah, and so beyond this number, the director, is there any other things that people should be aware of? Maybe those who have applied and are waiting, should they just continue to wait, or if they have questions, is there anywhere that you would recommend directing some of those questions to?
We continue to get questions about individual claims, which we're trying to get through it with our staff. But I do appreciate the public's patience with us. Again, the volume of claims is just astronomical. It's unbelievable to see, and we realize that these represent real bodies. We represent that they're real people. And so it's really concerning to us. Want to make sure that we pay people the right amount and as quickly as possible. So we are doing everything we can to make that happen. Again, 21 days, we're very cognizant about that, and we're trying to get it down below that. But a lot of these things are systems that were put into effect because they needed to have particular types of system logic to it. And so we're having now to figure out, okay, can we just remove that logic? Or if we remove it, will we have a bigger problem on the back end? And so it's much more, it's not there's no easy fix for it, but I can assure you that the people who are behind here that are working to address these concerns are very diligent. They're very good people, and they understand what the concerns are, and they're doing everything they can to address it. So I appreciate the public's continued patience and their faith in our ability to get this done.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you coming on with us and spending so much of your time. We know that you have a very busy job to get back to. We are going to ask you to come on again because you see all those questions. We encourage you to also watch the broadcast from last week on the 31st because there were some other questions in there that we didn't get to today. But please share this video, like it, make sure that your friends and family see it. And again, Mr. Murakami, we really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We know there are a lot of questions out there. We appreciate all of you writing in. Continue to write your questions. Tomorrow we have Senator Schatz joining us, and he's going to be talking about the federal stimulus and different programs that are available there. So we know that we have a very active group here. We appreciate that. We're sorry if we didn't get to all of those. And we know that people's patience, as Han Sol right there writes in, our patience is running out. We know a lot of you are frustrated, and we sympathize with that. I think the director there just saying that they are really doing the best that they can.
And one of the things too, I think that's making this a little more complicated is that they're still waiting for direction from the Department of Labor, on the national level, and trying to get guidance in terms of how this CARES Act will impact the overall unemployment that's happening here on a local level. So they're still waiting for guidance on that. I know that we continue to see a lot of questions of people asking when can they get that federal stimulus package in part and receive part of that. And that may be a question that we ask for Senator Schatz as well, to maybe see if he knows to see tomorrow when he comes on the show to provide any sort of updates that they may have from the federal level and in terms of what is coming in. So again, we encourage you to go back and watch the show. A lot of the questions that have been coming in later in this broadcast were addressed early on or in the show last week. So we encourage you to go back and sort of look for that as well. But we also will put any information that we have, links as well as phone numbers, updated phone numbers, into the caption of this video, so you can go back and refer to that after this is done.
We always like to leave you on a high note, of course. We want to ask you two things. First thing is the Star-Advertiser's big question of the day. Would you support Hawaii's mayors in enacting stronger social distancing mandates like curfews and checkpoints? We are actually going to have Mayor Kirk Caldwell on here the day after tomorrow. So we're going to ask him about increased enforcement. We've seen Kauai take some pretty drastic steps with the enforcement there with the checkpoints. So is that something that we should all be doing here? And let's get to our Hawaii hero.
That's right. We're seeing a bunch of people in the community step forward. One of those is Big Island Candies, and they're trying to find and provide resources with what they know best, and that is those sweet treats made in Hilo. Big Island Candies actually began delivering some of their favorite products and their well-known chocolate chipped and dipped cookies to first responders, to hospitals, to medical workers, to those on the front lines. We saw a number of pictures come in through their social media accounts as well as from the nurses. So great to see Big Island Candies giving back. They also give it to members of the media, anyone basically that is working to help get information out as well as to provide that support. So we want to give a shout out to Alan Ikawa and the crew over there at Big Island Candies for being our Hawaii hero of the day.
Yeah, and if you've got a Hawaii hero that you'd like us to highlight, please leave that in the comments. We read every single one of those comments, nice or not. And so we'd love to hear who you want to see on. Our Friday slot is still open right now. So tomorrow we have Senator Schatz. Thursday we have Mayor Kirk Caldwell, and Friday it's wide open. So we're going to see who we're going to have. And if there's someone that you'd like to hear from, let us know. We can try to book that guest. In the meantime, as always, we remind you to please stay home. The more we social distance and stay home now, the faster this is all over and we can get back to work.
That's right. Again, we want to encourage you to let us know some of the topics that you want to address as we will continue this through the rest of the month. Another way that you can continue to help out is by taking the survey at hawaiifightscovid.org. This is a way where you can help to trace down where the disease is in our communities by answering some simple questions. And this is a way that University of Hawaii researchers, as well as other people that are involved in this tracing, can track down the hardest hit areas and can provide further information about where this is in our communities and just help us overall to prevent. So encourage you to help that out by visiting hawaiifightscovid.org.
Yeah, that survey takes 2 minutes to fill out, very easy, and it will really help us figure out where the hot spots are. We mahalo our sponsor, the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. That's a consortium of business and civic leaders in Hawaii working to make the islands a better place. We are trying to do that in our small way here by giving you resources and letting you access people in power directly so you can ask them your questions. Again, tomorrow, Senator Schatz joins us. We hope you join us right back here tomorrow at 10:30.
Aloha.